Live with CDP Sports Talk, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor FM, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and TuneIn. Now, here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Season 6, Episode 42, overall 317th episode of Live with CDP Sports Talk, brought to you by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership, 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, or give them a call at 905. Sorry, I apologize. I made a mistake there. Give them a call at 519-824-0210, or you can check out their website, barrycullen.com, or email them at info@barrycullen.com as well. Live with CDP Sports Talk is on weeknights at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern on WQEE 99.1 FM in Metro Atlanta, the home of Southern Talk and Sports. Good afternoon, everybody, on this Monday, September 18th, 2023, and I'm looking forward to my guest today. My guest, this is her first time on Live with CDP Sports Talk, and her name is Dr. Ciera Scott. She's a licensed psychologist and founder of Recalibrate to Liberate, and a keynote speaker and a DEI practitioner out of Nashville, Tennessee. I'm going to ask her what exactly a DEI practitioner is, but I'm going to bring on Dr. Scott. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Dr. Scott. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you today, Chris? Thanks so much again for having me today.
Well, thank you so much for coming on my show today. I really appreciate it. How was your weekend?
It was wonderful. It was filled with lots of great self-care and some time to restore myself. So I'm feeling ready for the new work week. How was your weekend?
Not too bad. I watched a lot of NFL on Sunday, a little too much TV.
Football is back.
Yes. And I love college football too. So this time of the year, it's college football, the NFL, and the Canadian Football League up here as well. And I also still do my media work and work on my shows, even when I'm not technically working as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much again for having me. And yes, as a Georgia person born and raised, I'm definitely a college football fan. Go Dawgs. Sick 'em. But yes, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
I'm a Michigan Wolverines fan, by the way, so go blue.
There we go. There's room for it all.
Definitely. And like I said, I was before we get into some questions, Dr. Scott, I was noticing on LinkedIn that you did go see on the weekend the latest movie, the Barbie movie.
I did. Yes, that was a couple weekends ago. I really enjoyed it. Definitely, of course, as a child, played with Barbie dolls growing up. But it was really what I appreciated the most, which is the modernization of the movie, and then how they spoke to some themes related to gender equity, racial equity within the movie. So it was really nice. I enjoyed it a lot. Have you seen it?
No, I have not. Would you recommend it?
I totally would recommend it. Yes, for all age groups, for sure.
Okay, definitely we'll look into that. I guess we'll get into some questions. My show is based out of the Toronto area, so could you tell my audience a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So again, my name is Dr. Ciera Scott. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a licensed psychologist and DEI practitioner. And what DEI stands for is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so given my background, I particularly love collaborating with organizations, whether that's corporate, nonprofits, higher ed, healthcare settings, because I do have background in all of those domains that I just listed in increasing psychological safety and increasing inclusion amongst the workplace. So that's what it means to be a DEI practitioner. As I mentioned earlier, I was born and raised in Georgia, but I do currently call Nashville, Tennessee home. Yes, and I'm happy to share any other details. I know a little bit later we'll be talking about my business, Recalibrate to Liberate, LLC, and how I combine my passions and my expertise in the areas of DEI and mental health through that business. So I'll hold on sharing a little bit more about that until later, but that's a little bit more about who I am.
And one thing too about mental health is so important nowadays. And as for myself too, I have my challenges. I'll be honest with you, Dr. Scott, because when you start a new career, it doesn't matter if you're 51 or you're 21 or 31, you're going to get your rejections and setbacks, and you're going to hear noise too about you can't do this or you shouldn't do this. To me, mental health and your mindset is huge nowadays.
Absolutely. I definitely have many conversations, whether it's in individual therapy or in outreach and community engagement efforts, anytime there is a transition, whether it's related to career, relationship, any other parts of our lives, I like to normalize that change. Although it's definitely a constant part of life, it's hard. No matter how old we are, no matter how many different types of careers or shifts we've made, it's understandable for doubts to come up, insecurities to come up, and also just that adjustment to something that's new. So thank you so much for your vulnerability and sharing about, where you currently are in your transition, but also wanted to validate those experiences for anyone who's in the midst of change. It's hard. It's hard.
It's a little scary too, but to be honest with you, my last profession, I was there for 23 and a half years. I was paid well, but at the end, I wasn't happy. And I know money's important nowadays, but also it's important to be happy and
Absolutely.
And to find your passion. And I think my former profession prepared me for this because I had to deal with people from all kinds of walks of life working in a gambling industry, with the horse people, with casino people, CEOs of the company. So in a way, I think my former career has prepared me for a new career in broadcasting.
Absolutely. And there's a way in which I'm a firm believer in that our stories, all of them can inform our future. Our past can inform our future. And so I'm appreciating hearing how you have those transferable skills that you've really leaned into the strengths and lessons that you've learned. And I'm applying that to your current goals when it comes to radio. I too, if it's okay to share,
Yes.
So I do, in my 9 to 5, I do currently work in higher education, but I have served in both clinical and research roles in other healthcare settings, such as outpatient hospital settings. I've also worked at a youth detention center. I've done a high level of collaboration with nonprofit organizations. And as such, I've learned the value of partnership, of being able to look at organizations from a systemic level, seeing themes and dynamics when it comes to mental health, staff and employee well-being. Also, organizationally speaking, are there initiatives that an organization could be doing to bolster psychological safety, both in-house as well as within any partnerships they may have across the community? And then also definitely with presenting and being in front and amongst people, that's definitely something that's been transferable across all the domains in which I've worked, but especially with bringing my passions when it comes to ensuring that workplaces in all spaces feel, again, psychologically safe for folks, inclusive of all their identities, whether that's race, gender identity, sexual orientation, religious or spiritual faith, ability status, inclusive of mental health. So yes, it's been quite a journey when I think about my professional career, but that all definitely feeds into the consulting work that I do through Recalibrate to Liberate.
I've had 2 other guests on my show in the last month off of LinkedIn who deal with that topic. Linda Crockett, Jeff Niche, and they both came on as well. And that's another topic too, is the workplace environment, because you can get you can have a job where the money is great and stuff like that, but if you have management in a toxic environment,
Yes.
to me, the environment is just as important as its job itself.
Mm-hmm. And you know what, Chris? Sometimes I would argue that the environment can maybe outweigh and be even more so important than that paycheck. Because when we think about the instances, I know for sure, like workplace harassment, discrimination, prejudice, or just toxic management styles, like that's what drives people out of workplaces more often than not, at least from my experience. And especially when I think about the impact of all of those types of harm on folks' mental health. And then again, from my vantage point, when we think about other identities, when it comes to Black and Brown people in the workplace, LGBTQ identified folks in the workplace, people with different ability status in the workplace, that if you're experiencing a toxic work environment that doesn't even feel safe to come into, of course, it would make sense that you would want to make some moves, some transitions, and then I think about those who don't have the privilege to make moves and transitions yet and are remaining in those spaces. So that's why I'm so passionate about coming into organizations and helping them improve their systems, whether it's affinity spaces, through workshops or trainings, through ongoing consulting for managers and leaders, so that our workplaces can feel safe, especially when it comes to people with systemically marginalized identities. So I won't get in on soapbox, but yes, I would argue the environment is even more important than the paycheck.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, my last career job, there was a lot of positives in it, but it was a toxic environment at the end, and it was stressing me out. And for me, I just feel so much. I feel free now, and for me, I'm just glad to be out of the environment. And you're right. A lot of people now, when they're looking for jobs on LinkedIn or Indeed, etc., not just the money aspect, but they want to know that they're going into you're never going to find a perfect job, obviously.
No.
But you don't want to go into a poisonous, toxic environment, because it is very stressful. It can affect you physically. It can affect you mentally, and also your long-term health effects from it as well.
Absolutely. And when we think about yes, questions around workplace culture. How is well-being integrated within the workplace? How is self-care valued? How is PTO, your time off, valued? What opportunities are there for community building within the workplace? How are concerns related to grief and loss navigated, or if someone needs accommodations? Just yes. And it's critical, especially as we are, I don't want to say coming out of COVID, because COVID is still here. But with the addition, the addition of the COVID pandemic, as well as additional visibility when it comes to identity-based discrimination, especially like racism, ableism, homophobia. It's like, our workplace environment, we spend way too many hours a day at work for it to not feel safe. And so, yes, I'm right there with you, Chris.
Absolutely. That we could talk about this for an hour or two.
Yes, we could.
Based on your experiences and what I saw in 23 plus years as well. But I want to get to some other questions, Dr. Scott. When did you decide you wanted to get into the psychology industry? And did you have a mentor or mentors when you were first starting up?
Yes, thank you so much for that question. So in reflection, so authenticity and transparency are two of my biggest values. And so in transparency, when I was a junior in high school, I lost one of my closest childhood friends, passed away. But thank you. He's definitely one of my guardian angels. I feel him pretty much every day. But as I was going through my healing process, I began doing community service with the Boys and Girls Club locally. I grew up in Macon, Georgia. And as a part of that experience, I was a tutor, but hearing the stories of those elementary age students, I was doing kindergarten through sixth grade, just hearing about the levels of childhood trauma and adversity, as well as stories of triumph that they were holding. Because the students, while we're not math, that's not my thing. But while we were, going over reading homework or social studies homework, they would be sharing about, instances of either community violence, domestic violence, their own personal experiences that they were bringing then to school, right? And as I was, of course, I've always been told, like, you're such a great listener, Ciera. You're such a great, friend. But it was in making room and holding space for those student stories. And then, yes, taking that steps as I needed to in collaboration with the school administration that I really anchored into psychology and becoming a psychologist as a field that felt inspiring to me and also felt accessible to me. I'm accessible by way of especially once I began undergrad. So I got my bachelor's in psychology with a minor in Spanish from Mercer University in Macon. And I had several wonderful faculty on staff there who really encouraged me to not only continue finishing my bachelor's, but then to find employment after I graduated. And so through a college friend, I was able to begin working at a place that was a neurosurgical practice. And I was a research coordinator and assistant for their geriatric neuropsychologist on staff. So this was my first time working very closely. I worked there for, I think, about 4 years, working very closely with a neuropsychologist. So he did a lot of assessment. But I will always have him to thank as someone who saw that spark in me and saw my ability to go on to graduate school to become a psychologist. So there was, especially when it came to serving underserved populations, he did a lot of work within the geriatric population. And then also being able to do a lot of community-based work and using he helped me see how you can use expertise in mental health to really improve not only individual well-being, but systemic community-based well-being. So he was one of my huge mentors. And I've got several from my doctoral journey that I remain in touch with. And I've really connected, especially with female psychologists of color at different workplaces who have really mentored me of what it means to navigate workplaces, given the identities that I do hold and the passions I have. So again, I wanted to honor time. I could keep going and going and going, but I've got lots of people to thank for where I am right now. And then, yes, my family. I got to give a shout out to my family, my mom and my siblings for sure, for their ongoing support throughout this journey.
Absolutely. And one thing too, I've learned lately too, obviously talking is important, but listening is just as important as talking as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And we, actively listening is an art. I I know people who will say like, oh, well, you just listen to people talk all day. It's like, yes, but there's so much more to that. Being present, staying mindful, being focused on what someone is saying to you, and listening to demonstrate empathy, not listening simply to respond. It really takes practice. And also to I'm a big proponent of ensuring that, especially as a psychologist, you're doing your personal work, because if you are holding people's stories all day, and I do a lot of trauma work and a lot of identity-based work, you got to make sure that you're healed, which I'm so grateful I've had opportunities for healing before then creating spaces for others so your stuff doesn't get in the way. But yes, learning how to take pauses, learning how to breathe, learning how to ground yourself when you are a space holder for others, and truly listening to be able to reflect back meaning to people and also hold a mirror to folks as they're going through their healing journey. There's a reason we go to school for this stuff. So, but yes, not to minimize the impact, of course, that our close and trusting social support spaces can have. But yeah, actively listening, it is an art.
And it applies to my media show as well. Because when I first started my show, I was so fixated on my questions and writing everything down on a piece of paper. And sometimes I'd ask my guests a question, and they would give me the answers to 5, 6 questions. And I was asking them questions that they already answered. So for me in the media industry, it's just as important for me to listen to my guest as it is for me to talk. And I'm sure it is in your profession as well.
Absolutely. And so whether it's through individual therapy, group therapy, community engagement, outreach efforts, if during the outreach, if there's a Q&A portion, it's I have learned over time to practice the power of practicing flexibility and being present, and that I am a highly or I experience myself as a highly organized person. So yes, I may come with my list of questions or list of points that I want to make, but there's a lot of power of, if there's a lot of energy around one question or one point, let's be present with that. There's a richness and a fullness and connection that can happen when we can distance ourselves from an agenda and instead be present. And so, yes, that's definitely something that I have learned throughout my professional experience, that the power of presence, it makes room for connection and growth and healing when we can go off script sometimes.
Before I get to my next question, I wanted to get your opinion, because you're in the States and I'm in Canada. Do you find there's a lack of empathy lacking in our society in 2023?
I will say, I don't know if I would describe it as a lack of empathy, as I am, for better, for worse, forever hopeful about the state of humanity. I do think what I would say is that technology, with all of the benefits that it brings to our world, that it also, in many ways, I feel has created some disconnect and some distance from person to person. I think it can be so easy to, be on our phones or detach on social media, like, hey, me too, me too. Again, being mindful is a daily, hourly, minute by minute practice. But I do wonder if there are ways in which technology, as well as COVID, especially when we had to go into quarantine, we are all having to readapt to what it means to socialize, whether it's virtually or in person. After we experienced, I describe COVID as a global trauma. Like, that was a traumatic experience that we all had to navigate at the drop of a dime. Like, I remember going into work one day and then being told at the end of that day that we were working from home for 2 weeks. Right?
And it turned into 2 years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think the combination of technology, again, given its benefits, but that it can create disconnect, as well as us having to learn to socialize and be in community safely again during COVID, I think have created some challenges to connection, and thereby potentially some challenges to us being able to show up empathically with one another. I do feel that. In addition to, I guess this will be my last point, just our different ideologies, our belief systems, our identities, and how sharing space with one another, given all of those variables, we don't get taught that every day. Like, it requires sharing space with each other, actively listening with one another, building the skills to navigate our emotions when we're being called in about something, to be able to then show up with empathy with each other. So Thank you for that question.
No problem. And sometimes I write down questions for my guests, but then when I'm speaking to my guests, it just pops in my head. I guess because in my former career, I had to interview people when I had to deal with people being trespassed or being asked to leave because they've had too much to drink. I always had to come up with questions in my head. So that sometimes happens with my show, where I'm talking to my guests, we're having a good conversation, and then I have another question pop up, and that's something I wanted to ask you. And this question I wanted to ask you as well. Can you explain the differences between a psychologist and a psychiatrist, aka shrink?
Yes. Thank you for inviting that common terminology of the shrink. So the difference between a psychiatrist and psychologist. So I'll try. In short, a psychiatrist prescribes medication. So that will be someone who either has an EMD, or they are like a psychiatric nurse practitioner who is able to prescribe medications to folks for mental health concerns. A psychologist will be primarily offering either individual, group therapy, community engagement interventions, things of that sort. And while in some states in the U.S., I don't know them off the top of my head, some states in the U.S., psychologists are able to prescribe medications, but that is not largely the case here in the U.S. So that would be the difference. So like for me, being based here in Tennessee and licensed in Tennessee, I do not prescribe medications. I'm primarily offering individual group therapy, community outreach, as well as doing organizational consulting through my business, Recalibrate to Liberate. Is there anything else I could clarify there?
No, that's why I wanted to ask you about that, because when I first met you, I assumed you were a shrinking as like a psychiatrist, I guess.
No, thank you. I will
Never
maintain
assume, by the way.
my identity. All good. No worries. Sorry if there was a lag there.
Definitely. No worries at all. And yeah, we still got about 5 minutes left. So this question I wanted to ask you about, Dr. Scott, how did you come about starting up your own company, Recalibrate to Liberate? And what were some of the challenges of starting up your own business?
Thank you so much for this question, Chris. And so Recalibrate to Liberate was honestly a vision that I had for about 5 years before I finalized it and formalized it as an LLC and really began marketing. But it was throughout my professional experiences. Again, I have worked in higher education, in various healthcare settings, as well as nonprofit settings in the public sector, was observing and also experiencing different dynamics when it came to diversity, equity, inclusion, and how it intersects with mental health. And especially in creating psychologically safe spaces, not only for individual or group therapy clients, but even more so, how important it is for diverse workplaces and diverse staff in those different organizational settings. And so I founded Recalibrate to Liberate so I could mesh those passions as well as areas of my expertise together to make systems-wide changes. I felt as though while I'm absolutely very connected to making impact on an individual level, I was really feeling called to be able to more so broadly market myself in a way that I could join and collaborate with organizations in making, again, systems-wide changes, whether that's through trainings, educational workshops. I offer a lot of healing support spaces, whether there's been a grief or loss in the workplace, if there's been a micro or macro aggression in the workplace, I offer those types of healing support spaces as well as workshops and trainings in accompaniment. When it comes to the challenges that I've experienced, I think once I formalized my LLC in December of 2021. So, building connections and networking, again, still while COVID is present and learning how to leverage, again, the positive parts of technology, learning how to leverage community networking and offering all of these services virtually continues to be a growth edge, but one that I have happily taken on as a challenge. And then also, I think it depends on the level of readiness of the organization. And so when people reach out to me to consult with their organizations, what's the level of openness heart-wise? What's the level of openness heart-wise to doing the personal work around what have we been taught around race? What have we been taught about mental health? What have we been taught about the LGBTQ population? And being able to acknowledge our biases, unlearn them and address them so that we can commune with each other in workplaces. I think people really assessing what's my individual level of readiness, what's our organization's level of readiness in doing this work. And that sometimes can present challenges when an organization's level of readiness may not completely align quite yet with the services that I offer. So those would be my two just authentic responses to your questions.
And I have your website on my ticker for anyone that's watching or listening. It's recalibrate to liberate.com.
Yes, thank you so much. So I welcome folks. Check out my website again, recalibrate the number 2 liberate.com. And I welcome emails as well. So my email address is Ciera, CIERA at recalibrate the number 2 liberate.com. And again, I am very happy to connect with folks. If you're having questions around how I could either do presentations, workshops, trainings, also thoroughly enjoy doing keynote speaking on topics related to mental health as well as diversity, equity, inclusion, or if you have employee affinity groups. I absolutely enjoy holding space, whether it's in response to critical incidents that may happen in the workplace or just general processing spaces for those types of groups. Those are things that bring me joy. And if there's anything that's not listed on my website or anything I didn't speak on today where you have a need, especially when it comes to the intersection of DEI and mental health, I'd love to hear more about it so we can talk about how we can partner.
Okay, and I was going to ask you, Dr. Scott, are you okay staying a few more minutes for me to play a video clip of your show, and then
yes.
and then we'll wrap it up then.
That sounds great. That sounds great.
Thank you so much for doing this. I do this with all my guests. I like to show a little bit of their work so my audience can get to know my guests' work and stuff like that. You're welcome. Just 1 second. And this is courtesy of your YouTube channel, Recalibrate to Liberate YouTube channel. And please subscribe if you already haven't.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let me know if you can hear the audio okay.
Knowing where we are in a higher ed cycle. So thank you for your level of engagement at this point of the semester. Again, do not take it for granted. So a couple of responses. We've got helpfulness, support, flexibility, understanding, competency, appreciation. Yes. I know I had a colleague mention gratitude, whether that's extending it or receiving it. Yes. Comfort, peace, content, community, lightheartedness. Yes, I will own I'm biased towards that one as well. If y'all can't tell, I'm a little silly myself. Management style. Oh, I'd love to unpack that shortly. We've got compassion, challenge, joy, laughter, reliability, patience, learning. These are fantastic. Reciprocity. Ooh, that was literally the heart of a courageous conversation I was having in my current workplace earlier this week. The power of reciprocity, and that being able to increase vulnerability in the workplace. So I know that I did not read aloud every single value here. But as we are sitting with folks' responses, I'm wondering if maybe 1 or 2 people want to speak out, about what prompted you to choose the value that you put. I welcome that. If you want to just unmute yourself, that's cool. Or if it feels more accessible to drop it in the chat, that's also okay. But maybe 1 or 2 people, if you want to speak to one of the values you shared here.
I can share. Hi, I'm Meg.
Thank you.
I put autonomy as one of mine, and I just really value the ability to make decisions on my own and work with people I'm just gonna repeat making decisions, but like making changes and being able to move forward without having to check in with like a million different people every time, or like having the autonomy that my supervisor trusts me to make those decisions. That's very valuable to me.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And that trust is definitely resonated. And so that you don't feel micromanaged. There's so many other ways your energy could be used versus feeling like you're operating in response to micromanagement. So thank you for speaking to that. How about one more person? If you want to share the value, one of the values that you lifted up and what prompted you to share that one.
I can go, Dr. Scott. I put fun. It's a small one, but it looks like not too many people added it. But it's very important to me personally and professionally because things can feel monotonous. You're just going through the day to day, and I just want to feel alive and I want to have joy. So just finding ways, like yes, we're super busy, but how can I make it fun? Like, how can I smile a lot at my students or ask them how spring break went and try to get some joy from them? Also giving joy to myself personally. Like, I have hobbies outside of work that will always be in my life, no matter how tired I am. So fun is a big one.
Fun. And so thank you so much for your reflections as well. So there's a way in which I think the weight of the world and then also the weight of the work that we do in holding space for students, for our colleagues, for the community at large, and where one, I think it's easy to lose yourself just as an individual. And then secondly, it can be easy to get stuck in. There are a lot of negative things going on in the world, and how that levity of spirit can bring just more fulfillment and sense of satisfaction to the day to day. So, again, just thank you so much for all of your reflections, and also especially for those who verbally shared. There will be more opportunities for folks to chime in, but thank you all for your engagement in this exercise. I appreciate it. So, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and going back. We've got some love in the chat. Yes. Um, but as we continue, I do invite you again, think about those values, holding those in mind, because I'm offering that up as basically your arrow. Like as you're thinking of when there's conflict in different areas of your life, or, ooh, I'm frustrated or annoyed because a boundary has been crossed. I would argue that more often than not, it might be because a value feels compromised or not respected or hasn't been honored, or maybe you haven't had an opportunity or felt empowered quite yet to verbalize that that was a value and that was a line. So thank you again. Again, that's our anchor for the rest of our time together today. So gonna go.
Okay, well, I want to thank you for letting me share that, and that's your YouTube channel. Where can people subscribe to your YouTube channel again?
Absolutely, yeah. So feel free to find me on YouTube under Recalibrate, the number 2, Liberate, LLC. You can find me there by my business name. And that clip was from a virtual professional development training that I did with a team in advising. They were a college advising team at a university out in the Midwest. And so thank you for showing that clip. It showed a little bit about my presentation style, as well as the humor, compassion, and care that I do feel I try to bring to each space, whether it's through organizational consulting or otherwise. And so that's where folks can find me. And again, feel free to also drop by my website, www.recalibrate, the number 2, liberate.com, or send me an email at Ciera, Ciera, at recalibrate, the number 2, liberate.com. And people are more than welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. So you can find me there by my full name, which is Ciera, Ciera, V as in Victoria, Scott, PhD. So Ciera V. Scott, PhD is how you can find me on LinkedIn. And I welcome connection through all of those avenues.
I was going to say, Dr. Scott, I'm sorry. I apologize for keeping you over 30 minutes, but
it's okay.
when you're having a great conversation, it just flies by quickly. And
yes.
I want to say thank you for coming on live with CDP Sports Talk. And you have an open invite to come back on again in the future as a guest as well.
Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun, Chris. Thank you for having me.
And when we wrap this show up, I will send you a audio, video link to our show. And when it airs on WQEE 99.1 FM in the Metro Atlanta area, I will send you that link as well. But again, I want to say thank you so much, Dr. Scott, for coming on here again. And again, you guys can email her at Ciera at recalibrate, number 2, liberate.com, and check out her website, recalibrate 2, number 2, liberate.com as well.
Thank you again so much for having me. May all of you be well, happy, and whole. Looking forward to hearing from folks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Scott, and have a great afternoon. And we'll definitely keep in touch with you on social media.
All right. Sounds great. Take good care. Bye.
Bye. That was Dr. Ciera Scott, a licensed psychologist and the founder of her own business, Recalibrate to Liberate. And she's also a keynote speaker and a DEI practitioner out of Nashville, Tennessee. And again, you can email her. You can email Dr. Scott at Ciera at Recalibrate, the number 2, liberate.com. And her website is recalibrate2liberate.com as well. The next Live with CDP Sports Talk, sponsored by Barry Collins Chevrolet, will be next Monday, September 25th at 4 p.m. My guest is going to be, her name is Lauren Schoss. She is a first-year psychological student. Actually, she's a first-year doctoral psychological, I can say it, student at James Madison University. And I'm looking forward to speaking to Lauren next week at 4 p.m. I hope I didn't mess up her last name or psychology. I got that right as well. So next Monday, September 25th at 4 p.m. for the next edition of Live with CDP Sports Talk with guest Lauren Schoss, first year doctoral psychology, a student at James Madison University. The next Argo Bounce live audio show with your co-hosts Chris Pame and Nick Small, Tuesday, September 19th at 7 p.m. as we talk about the Argonauts' exciting 23-20 comeback win against the Montreal Alouettes and preview the Argonauts' game Saturday at 8:00 against their QEW rivals, the Hamilton Tiger Cats at BMO Field. You can get tickets at argonauts.ca, or you can watch the game on TSN or TSN 1050 on the radio with Mike Hogan and Ben Grant as well. Some other CFL scores from the weekend, besides Toronto's 23-23 over Montreal, they clinched the East, and they will be hosting the East final again for the third straight year at BMO Field against most likely either Montreal or Hamilton. Some of the other CFL scores this week, guys, from the weekend. Edmonton won their 4th game out of their last 5 with a 36-27 win over Saskatchewan. Hamilton is playing much better football. Their 3rd win in their last 4 games, upsetting Winnipeg 29-23, CFL Hall of Fame weekend at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton. And also, the BC Lions had their greatest comeback in team history, beating Ottawa 41-37. And I'll tell you this, the CFL this year, the games have been insane. They all come down to the last ending, and it was just amazing. That game was crazy, the BC Ottawa win. And then the Toronto game, the Argonauts came back and rallied to take a 23-20 lead. Montreal was about to tie it up at the end of the game with a field goal, I think, from 40 yards or so. And Darlene Hendricks of the Argonauts blocked the kick to seal the Argonauts win as well. So I'm looking forward to that, guys. And we have Monday Night Football on tonight too, guys. 2 Monday Night Football games. We got the New Orleans Saints at the Carolina Panthers at 7:15. And then the later game is an AFC Central rival. The Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson taking on Pickett and the Pittsburgh Steelers at 8:15. I was 0 for 4 in my pick 4 NFL predictions for this weekend. So tonight's predictions, I'm going to go with Carolina and Cleveland. Carolina and Cleveland to win their games. So hopefully I can get those 2 games right as well. Also, guys, as we wrap this up, Live with CDP Sports Talk is sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new pre-owned GM vehicles. Give them a call at 519-824-0210 or email them at info@barrycullen.com. Also, at Barry Cullen Chevrolet right now, step into fall with a 2023 Silverado 1500 Custom Crew Cab pickup truck. You can lease for $297 bi-weekly at 6.9% financing for 24 months with $3,250 Canadian down payment on an ultra low kilometer lease as well. Eligible Costco members can receive a $750 bonus on select SUVs. More information, go to barrycullen.com or pop by the dealership in the Guelph Auto Mall here as well. And we're going to wrap this guys up. As always, Live with CDP Sports Talk is a weekly sports and entertainment talk show hosted by yours truly, Chris Pame, is on weeknights at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern on WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key, the home of Southern sports and talk, the heartbeat of Atlanta. Our website for the radio station is wqeefm.radio12345.com as well. A shout out to Ryan O'Neill, the station manager. This is my 8th month on WQEE 99.1 FM. Also, a shout out to Wayne McFarland. He is the editor and publisher of Digital Briefing Magazine. And he was kind enough to have my radio show podcast advertised in his magazine. So Wayne McFarland, a shout out to you. And check out his magazine. It's a once a month magazine at digitalbriefing.com. digitalbriefing.com. Again, thank you so much to Wayne McFarland for advertising my show on your digital magazine that comes out once a month as well. Live with CDP Sports Talk is live streamed on these platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And I want to say thank you to everybody watching live stream today with Dr. Ciera Scott as well. Also, guys, you can check out my website, beacons.ai/Christy Pame. All my digital content, media work, and previous radio shows and podcasts are on beacons.ai/Christy Pame. Live with CDP Sports Talk, again, is brought to you by Barry Cullen Chevrolet here in Guelph at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. You can also follow me on TikTok at Live with CDP. I'm quite active on TikTok. I'm very active on TikTok with some of my wrestling interviews, coaches, player interviews. A lot of my media work is on my TikTok page, and I'm a content creator for TikTok. And I want to say thank you to my 1,582 followers on TikTok as well. And I really enjoy TikTok. It's been a great tool as well. StreamYard is the official live stream provider of Live with CDP Sports Talk, the Argo Bounce live audio show, and the Small Talk podcast as well. If you're into webinars or podcasting such as myself, check out StreamYard.com as well. Live with CDP Sports Talk, the audio version is available on these platforms: iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify for podcasters, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Spotify, Castbox, LinkedIn, Pandora, and Tuned In, as well as WQEE 99.1 FM, 8 p.m. weeknights as well. Also, you guys can reach the show and email me at cpame19@gmail.com, or you can text the show at 519-820-7188. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, please feel free to text me at that number or email me at cpame19@gmail.com as well. I'm also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I want to say thank you to my 225 subscribers on my YouTube channel. I've tripled my subscribers in the last year. So thank you. 225 subscribing and counting. And you guys can also follow me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn quite often. So just check out Chris Pame on LinkedIn as well. Before I wrap up the show, I think I got some comments here. All right, Wayne McFarland. Okay, Wayne McFarland. I hope I didn't get it wrong. Okay, I apologize. www.thedigitalbriefingmagazine.com. So again, Wayne McFarland, thedigitalbriefingmagazine.com. I apologize. And please, everybody, check out his once a month magazine called thedigitalbriefingmagazine.com. The website's right there. And Wayne, thank you so much for watching my show and for your support and for having my podcast radio show advertised in your magazine. It really means a lot to me as well. So again, everybody, please check out Wayne's website again. www.thedigitalbriefingmagazine.com. gmail.com. Thank you, Wayne, so much for coming in here. And I really love doing this show. And this is my 317th episode as well. Again, my next podcast show next Monday, September 25th, 4 p.m. My guest is going to be Lauren Schoss, first-year doctoral psych student at James Madison University. And I hope you guys can tune into the Argo Bounce live audio show tomorrow night, 7 p.m. with Nick Small and myself. We'll be talking Toronto Argonauts football and previewing the game against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And we will have a special guest on who I won't announce it yet, who covers the team as well. And also, guys, I have some news coming up about live CDP Sports Talk and also the Argo Bounce live audio show as well. And I'll make those announcements tomorrow night on the Argo Bounce live audio show, which is also on WQEE 99.1 FM. One question I wanted to ask you guys before I leave here, for those who are Blue Jay fans, do you feel the Toronto Blue Jays will make the playoffs in 2023? The Blue Jays at time look like a playoff team that can beat anybody, and then there's times where they don't do so well. So I want to know, guys, are the Blue Jays in 2023 a playoff team or not? And if they do make the playoffs, do you feel they can have a long playoff run as well? So that's about it, guys. Again, I want to say thank you so much to my guest, Dr. Ciera Scott, a licensed psychologist out of Nashville, Tennessee, for coming on live with CDP Sports Talk today. You can email Dr. Scott at Ciera at recalibrate, the number 2, liberate.com. And you guys can check out her website at recalibrate, number 2, liberate.com. I really enjoyed talking with Dr. Ciera Scott today. And that's about it, guys. I hope everybody has a great afternoon and enjoys the Monday Night Football games again. New Orleans at Carolina, 7:15, and Cleveland and Pittsburgh at 8:15. And hopefully they'll be both competitive games as well. And Miami last night did it again. They beat Miami 24. Miami beat New England 24-17. So the Dolphins are now 2-0. And the New England Patriots are 0-2 for the first time since 2001. But when that happened last in 2001, they did end up winning the Super Bowl. And I was going to say, for New England Patriot fans, you played competitive against Philadelphia and Miami, 2 quality teams at home, and you could have easily won both games or won out of those 2 games. New England is going to be a good football club. They have a good defense, good special teams, and I think Mac Jones is really developing into a nice quarterback in his 3rd year. I think hiring Bill Jones as the Patriots offensive coordinator, bringing him back, he was in New England 10 years ago, was a good move by Bill Belichick. So I really think that AFC East, everybody thinks Buffalo. I really think Miami, good team. Buffalo has got a good team if they play clean football and don't turn it over. The Bills actually won 38-10 yesterday, and Allen had a great game. James Cook had a great game. The Buffalo Bills are a contender if they play clean football and don't make stupid mistakes or give the ball away. So that AFC East, you got Miami, solid team, Buffalo, New England. The Jets, I think, are going to be in trouble without Aaron Rodgers. I'm just not sold on Zach Wilson long term. I think for 1 or 2 games, he's okay, but long term, I don't think they're going to be okay. And everybody's excited about Dallas. They're 2-0, but the Philadelphia Eagles are 2-0. So I still think the 2 best teams in the NFC are the San Francisco 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles. Until Dallas can beat San Francisco and beat Philadelphia, I don't want to hear anything from the Dallas Cowboy fans. They're off to a nice start, Dallas 2-0, but we'll see what happens. And I'm going to just try to read one more comment before you go. Last comment from Wayne McFarland. Go Pittsburgh. Yeah, Pittsburgh needs to win tonight. They don't want to start 0-2 at home, because after tonight, I think their next couple games are on the road. So this is a big game tonight against the AFC Centrals. Wayne, since you're watching before I wrap this up, you're picking Pittsburgh. What's the score? How do you see this game going, Wayne? And what's your final score before we wrap up live with CDP Sports Talk as well? And that's about it, guys. I think we're going to wrap it up. Wayne, no worries about a prediction. Oh, wait, before we hear. There he is. Wayne just said agreed. Okay, I'll make a prediction for both of us. I say Pittsburgh wins this game I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. Pittsburgh 17, Cleveland 14. Steelers 17, Browns 14. There you go. I'm putting myself on the spot here, but that's about it. Again, I want to say thank you to Dr. Ciera Scott, psychologist out of Nashville, Tennessee, for coming on. And thank you to everyone watching live stream and listening on my audio platforms and also on WQEE 99.1 FM. I hope everybody has a great afternoon, and we'll see you guys tomorrow night for the Argo Bounce live audio show with co-host Nick Small and myself, 7 p.m. talking Argonauts and Canadian Football League. Have a great afternoon, everybody, and thanks again for tuning into Live with CDP Sports Talk.